Hello and welcome back to KXAN Plus. I'm your host, Esmeralda Zamora, and today we have our Weather's Answers with Rich segment with, of course, our KXAN meteorologist, Rich Segal. Rich, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. It's been a while since you and I have been together. We've been missing each other.
Yeah.
You've been off, I've been off, but today we're here together. And normally, of course, as people know, we do this on Sunday.
Yes.
But you were on the tail end of your vacation. I guess you had a recovery day yesterday.
Yeah, I was traveling back into town, so we missed it, but we're here today this
Here
morning.
we are, yes. So we're doing this the day later, and we're going to answer some questions, Esme, that we've had on hold since June. Well, you want to go first things first. These questions have been in the file, and so we want to address those today, and then we'll continue to add as we go forward in time.
And these questions, they don't expire, especially when I was inputting them to our system right now.
Right.
I definitely want to know the answers to these questions.
Okay.
As summer ends, I know one of the last ones is going to be really relevant. So let's jump into it.
Okay.
Our first question is, can we start seeing Cedar Park in Leander on your maps?
And the answer is they already are. On our temperature graphic, there are a few temperature graphics that we use. One is for a general viewing area, but there are three graphics that break down the city-by-city temperature chart. And so this is one of them. This is our metro temperatures, Williamson, Travis, Hayes counties, and you can see that we do have Leander. By the way, there was another question from a viewer who asked the same question, but about Pflugerville.
Yes.
And on this particular map, you can see Leander and Cedar Park and also at Pflugerville. On some of our radar maps, you will see these cities as we zone in or hone in on specific communities when we have rain and storms like we had a few weeks ago, so that you will sometimes see the name of Cedar Park, or you'll see the name of Leander, or you'll see the name of Pflugerville. Now, I run this particular graphic, the three-panel graphic, Hill Country, Metro temperatures in our eastern viewing area, on our CW Austin morning show at 7:30 and at 8:30. When I'm doing the midday for Freddie, I run it at 11:30 and 12:30. When I'm working on the weekend with Jayla, I'm running it at 7:30 and 8:30. So we are getting coverage for those communities that are just as important as everybody else. So we do have it on here. And like I said, it is on the radar when there is reason to show it. We don't show the radar, obviously, when there's no rain to show. But when we do have rain in the area and we zoom in on a particular area, then you will see, if it's in the right area, the Leander, Cedar Park, and Pflugerville names on there.
And Rich, this question just popped into my head. If there is a case where you're on air showing some graphics and let's say a city didn't make it on the graphic, will it be possible for residents from that area to get online and see a map with their city's name on it there?
Well, we try to do that. There's a community in eastern Travis County called Hornsby Bend, and we've had a couple of emails from a viewer who has suggested that we should mention it because it does not show up on the map at all.
Yep.
And we're trying to get that fixed because we want to get as many communities in our area on these maps so that people have an idea of what's going on in their communities. Now, this map that I have up here, the one that says Metro Temperatures, it's a busy map. It has about 15 or 16 locations on it, and so you really have to look quick because usually when I'm working these maps, I'm identifying maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 temperatures. I'm not going through the entire 16 that are on this particular map. I think it's 16. I'm trying to count in my head as I'm talking. But we try to mention as many of them. I try to diversify, in 1 hour, maybe I'll mention Leander and Driftwood and Pflugerville. And in the next hour, maybe I'll do Kyle and Lakeway and Georgetown, just because where this particular chart comes in, I also, I want to mention as many cities as possible so that people feel like they're getting that personalized hometown temperature forecast.
And Rich, a lot of our viewers don't know exactly how much time you have on air to go through these graphics. Give us an insight. How much time would you have for this particular graphic?
In a normal segment where this graphic would show, let's just say it's 7:30 on Monday morning and how much time. The producers will give me about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, depending on whether or not I need all that time, because there is a much longer segment that happens. And on the CW Austin Morning Show, we can show this graphic at any time. So I will spend about 10 seconds on the Hill Country, 10 seconds on Metro, 10 seconds on our Eastern viewing area. just so folks have enough time to look for their city and
Yeah,
see what their city's temperature is at that time.
exactly. So give us some grace. We don't have lots of time, but we will get to your city when the time is appropriate. And
Exactly.
our next question that we have here lined up is, what is the sea breeze?
Now we had talked about this. We talked about it a lot, and mostly during the spring and summer. The sea breeze is a weather effect. First of all, you have the wind that is blowing from the Gulf onshore. And for us, that means it's blowing onshore down around Galveston and Matagorda. It happens during the day, and usually for Central Texas, as you see on the bottom line, it says Central Texas is affected by it. Usually for us, we start seeing clouds start to roll in from the southeast
Mm-hmm.
during the early to mid-afternoon hours. And then as the atmosphere heats up, it kind of bubbles over, kind of like when you have water boiling in a pot. As it starts to boil over, you'll see some of these showers and storms blossom, especially in parts of Fayette and Caldwell and Lee counties. Those are our far east and southeastern counties here in central Texas. And those showers and storms move from the southeast, from the coast, move up to the northwest in a northwesterly direction, and they produce the showers and storms. And then as they reach I-35, sometimes they'll hold together, just depends on what time of the day it is. Sometimes it'll start earlier, sometimes it'll start later. But as it reaches I-35, we start seeing a little bit of weakening, and sometimes it'll pass on into the eastern hill country, talking Blanco, Burnett, Lampasas counties, and then start to die off with the loss of daytime heating. It's the heating of the atmosphere. Again, you put a pot of water on the burner, turn it on, you see the red on the burner start to take over, and then the water starts to get hotter, and then it starts to bubble over.
Yes.
And those are the thunderstorms that we see during the afternoon. We see, we'll usually get maybe at times a quarter to a half an inch. If the storm holds together and doesn't move too quickly, we could wind up with a half an inch to an inch. But most of this comes during the day into the early evening, and then they're gone with the loss of daytime heating. You don't get a sea breeze effect during the night.
Wow. So only during the day, pretty much.
Yeah.
Is this something that we were seeing during the week where we had so many storms here in Central Texas?
During the floods?
Yeah.
This was something completely different. We had moisture coming in from the Gulf, but this was from a stalled system that stayed over the area for a few days before leaving. These are isolated. They're not going to give you a torrent of rain, but these are mostly isolated showers and storms. They'll just pop up. They'll just pop up, and then maybe they'll die off. Or like I said, some of them will hold together and travel from that southeast to northwest direction.
Nice. Well, our third question here is, how is rain probability figured? This kind of ties in with that last one, right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, a long time ago, I met a meteorologist who worked for the National Weather Service in Fort Worth. His name is Alan Moeller. And we were talking about this at a weather conference in Norman, Oklahoma. And I was relatively new to the business. And I said, how do you determine rain probability? Because, again, my training was in broadcast journalism. I wanted to be a sports announcer.
Wow.
And then I got hooked in. That's another story for another time. And then I got hooked into weather as a fill-in at KAUZ TV in Wichita Falls. And thought, after 3 years of a fill-in assignment, or 2.5 years of a fill-in assignment, well, this is going to be my calling in life. So I had to go back and learn things. We didn't have computers back then. We did it through correspondence. But nevertheless, I was attending a conference at the National Severe Storms Laboratory in Norman in 1979 or 1980, and I met Alan. And I said, what is the determining factor in rain probability? And the very first thing he said was that the meteorologist who was devising this forecast has to have confidence that it will rain.
Wow.
Before you can even determine number, you have to have confidence that in your area there will be enough moisture, that precipitable water values are going to be high enough to lead to the chance of showers and storms. Rain probability is for a specific time period. For example, the 10% chance that we had in the forecast yesterday, that for the most part was there, but it wasn't reaching the ground, was for a period that started at 6 a.m., lasted until 6 p.m., and then there was another time period. But you can break those time periods down in other forecast models: 6 to noon, noon to 6, 6 to midnight, midnight to 6 a.m. It is expressed as a percentage. How much of the viewing area will get this rain? Now, sometimes on weather apps, not ours, but on
Others,
not ours,
like the iPhone one.
perhaps the iPhone one,
Yeah.
you'll see these rain probabilities that say 15%, 42%, 84%.
Hmm.
We in the broadcast media like to express them in whole numbers of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. When we issue a 20% chance of rain, it means that at least 0.01, 1/100th of an inch of rain will fall somewhere in the area in a given time. So, for example, I have a 20% chance of showers and storms in a forecast for the day. It means that I feel that there will be 0.01 of rain measured in 20% of that given area during the day. Not a trace. It has to be 0.01 or higher. Now, I'll go one step further with you. Some people make the mistake of saying this. Well, you have an 80% chance of rain. That means we're going to have several inches of rain.
Yes.
No, that's not the case. 80% means that 80% of the given area will get at least 0.01 of rain. And if that happens, the forecast holds. It doesn't have anything to do with the amount of rain that will fall. It just has something to do with the amount of rain that will fall in a given area in a given period of time.
Wow. I'm glad that we're talking about this because a lot of people see that 80% chance of rain and think, oh, it's definitely going to rain today because we have that 80% chance. People don't really get to ask this. So now that we're here, let's talk about it. What makes you, let's say there's on your graphic, it says a 10% chance of rain. What gives you the confidence to say, yes, it's going to rain?
Seeing the positioning of weather systems at the mid-levels of the atmosphere and the upper levels of the atmosphere, think about it like a house that has a basement, a mid-level, and the bedrooms are upstairs. We are at the surface in the basement. We are at the mid-levels in the
First floor.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then in the second floors where we have the upper, we're looking at patterns that are developing in those three areas. Like today, for example, we know we have sufficient moisture off of a south wind at the surface, so that led to the overcast sky. But we also saw moisture in the mid-levels, and we saw even more moisture in the upper levels, and that's why the clouds maintained yesterday.
Yeah.
When we see the potential for what we call weather disturbance coming off of like an area of low pressure and traveling towards the area, that gives us the confidence to know that there will be rain, but there won't be as much, and it's not going to cover a good portion of our viewing area.
So there's a balance, and there's a lot that goes into saying, yes, it's going to rain, and no, it's not going to rain at all.
Yeah, sometimes it will take 45 minutes, maybe even an hour, to adequately put a forecast together that will assess the percentage of rain, the probability of rain in a given area. And sometimes you're tearing your head out of your head because you're looking at the map models and you're saying, well, gosh, this really doesn't jive with what I'm thinking. Sometimes those map models won't have any rain at all. And you're thinking, well, I wonder what they're thinking. Why is their thinking different than mine? So I'll go with my gut feeling. I've been doing this for more than 40 years. Sometimes you miss and sometimes you make it. But if it does rain in an area where rain is predicted, forecast held.
Yes. A lot of people don't know this. We talk about it quite often, but there are many computer models that show different kinds of maps and things. So you're having to also go through all of those and pick from there, right?
Yes. You look at the map model. For example, the map modeling during the flood, one computer of the four was almost on point with the storms and the initialization of those storms and when they would happen and how much rain they would deliver. And, it seemed like, and it was a situation where, okay, we've had enough.
Yeah.
But but again, the one thing that ruins sometimes a probability forecast is when a system stalls over an area and doesn't move, and then you get a greater coverage of the rain and the storms like we saw in earlier this month.
Yep. Well, our last question, I believe this is our final question, is what are the health impacts from the dust? And this is the one I was saying later this year, this is going to be really popular because we're
Yeah.
going to get all that dust and people are going to be asking this question over and over.
June to August is the time when the Saharan dust layer comes across the Atlantic and enters the Gulf and heads on up into our part of the state. And we're seeing a little of it today. There'll be one more day at least of it. It usually starts to wane in about the middle of next month. It can lead to respiratory issues. I've had about 5 to 10 that I'm remembering, viewers who have written to us and saying, well, how much longer is this going to is this going to last? I'm having so many issues with it. And you can see, it's going to lead to symptoms that will make you believe that perhaps you have a cold, coughing, sneezing, throat irritation. The people that have written have allergies, or a couple of them have asthma. This may affect them. I knock on wood that I'm not affected by this, but we know several people who are.
Yes.
Irritation of the eyes and skin. And so when the dust season rolls around, it's always a good idea for those who are susceptible to the allergies or who have asthma to check with their doctor. I don't know if there's a pharmaceutical that is better than anything else for people to take, but that would be something that a pharmacist would be more qualified to answer than me.
Yeah, and I suffer from this a lot, so I would go to my doctors and say, why is this happening? Why am I feeling like this?
Yeah.
And the first thing they say is, this is going to happen every year. Prep yourself, take your medication ahead of time so that you're ready.
One of the things that the dust does, it obscures our sky. It takes away that azure, that beautiful blue, and it gives you that haze. It's the same thing like when we have the agricultural burning that happens yearly down in Mexico and Central America when the farmers burn their crops to get ready for the wet season, which starts in June.
Yeah, so when it's coming, it's happening, the implications. Just be prepared for it.
Yes. Always check with your doctor. Meteorologists are not physicians.
Reporters are not physicians either. So check with your doctor. Rich, I believe these are all the questions that we have, but we do have a blog that you recently published on our website, KXAN.com, and I'm going to pull it up. Tell us what this blog is.
Recently, with cuts that the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration made, there was a database that NOAA decided would be discontinued. This database provided information on not million, but billion-dollar disasters that have occurred. Our partners, our media partners at Climate Central did a study on this. They went back to 1980 through 2024 to discover that there were 403 billion-dollar disasters in those the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, the 2010s, and then 2021 to 2024. 403 of these billion-dollar disasters. Now, these are not insurance losses. These are economic losses brought about perhaps by the changing climate. That's their role at Climate Central. It determined that these are happening faster and more than they did in the 80s. In the 80s, you could count on one. I think the number on my one of the graphics that I have in the article said about one every 80 to 85 days, and now it's less than 25 days between billion-dollar disasters. Texas led the country with 190 of those 403. Now, they didn't break it down into cities. It just broke it down into states, and Texas was number one. Most of them from severe storms, severe thunderstorms, some of them from the drought, some of them from tropical cyclones, and usually for most of the tropical cyclones would be along the coast. But I found it interesting because the database is being shut down because of evolving. The situation continues to evolve with NOAA during the current administration. They also had staffing changes, as you know. There were some staffing staffing changes and staffing cuts that occurred. So they're going to discontinue the database. Now, if this is, we don't know if this is going to be a permanent situation, but for now there will be no additional information put. So in other words, here in 2025, we've already had about 20 of these billion-dollar disasters. At least 20. Most of them have been in the United States, and the top two were the Palisades Fire and the Eaton Fire out in California.
Yeah.
But they won't be on any future databases because the database will have ended in 2024 unless it's resurrected somewhere down the line. the current situation or the flood situation that we had in the Hill Country will not be on a future database unless it's a different organization that provides this information. But for now, NOAA's database is not going to have this information and not going to update it any further.
Wow.
And that's really sad. I want to take an opportunity, if you'll let me. I did another blog, and this was before the flood hit. So this is why we haven't talked about it. But it was a fun blog. It talked about how the warming climate could affect the number of home runs in baseball stadiums going forward to around, I think the last decade they were talking about is 2080 to 2090. It was a fun read for me because I am a big baseball fan, and it broke down each individual ballpark to see how much the increase in the number of home runs would be. That may come up in a future weather chat, but we wanted to obviously talk about the current news at the time, which was and still is the flood. But if you get a chance, it also is online on our website, KXAN.com, under the Weather and Traffic tab in Weather Blogs.
And it's right here titled Warmer
there
Air
you go.
Leads to More Home Runs, study says.
Yeah, I kind of enjoyed working that, but that was an easy one to do.
I can tell with your sports background, this one was interesting to you. Well, we have those two blogs that you've shared with us. I want to go back to the other one. Something that stood out to me here says the price tag for catastrophic events in dollars is $3 trillion in loss of life, nearly 17,000.
Yes. This was a statistic that they came up with that we're sharing with our viewers just so they have a general idea of what these catastrophic events have done in terms of the loss of life, in terms of the dollar amounts of economic losses, in terms of what it's done to the general landscape.
Yeah.
You know, again, warmer air holds more moisture, and that usually can lead to what we saw not last weekend. Well, actually, yes, not this past weekend, but the previous one, and then definitely the one before that, because, you know, we did have the warmer water, and we did have all that water vapor and all that moisture, and it just had to go someplace. This study was very thorough, and one that I thought some of our viewers would be interested in reading.
Yes.
So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, of course. And those two articles are on our website right now, KXAN.com. You can find them on the homepage, or you can just search some keywords on your computer, and you can find them pretty quickly. Thank you so much for joining me, Rich. I'm glad we got to do this.
Can we do one more thing?
Yeah, of course.
All right. We always want your questions, and you can send it to us. And I have here it's called KXAN Plus Weather Answers with Me. We will take your questions and be very grateful if you would send them to us at reportit, REPORTIT, at KXAN.com.
Yes, we want all the questions that we can get because we do this show every single Sunday morning. And of course, we need the questions to do the show, right?
We do.
Well,
Thanks,
thank
Esme.
Yeah, thank you for joining me, Rich. We'll see you next week.